So kids, tell me, how are you enjoying your visit at the Kasmanda Palace in Mussoorie?
It's a lot of fun.
Hey, wait, correction. How are you enjoying your visit at the Kasmanda Palace in Mansuri?
What?
Yeah. Did you know this place was actually called Mansuri?
No.
And the secret of how Mansuri became Mussoorie lies in Nepal.
Nepal.
Why did Nepal come in the way?
Now, for you to understand that, you will have to come back with me about 180 years. 180 years back, Nepal was ruled by a king whose name was Raja Amar Singh. Remember that name? On the other end, the British East India Company was primarily there in India because they were taking cotton from here and using it to make cloth back in England.
Wait. But why can't they grow cotton in their own area?
Because their soil and climate doesn't support the growing of cotton. Can you tell me where cotton is grown in India?
Gujarat and Maharashtra.
Why?
Because they have the dark alluvial soil.
Super. So, Gujarat and Maharashtra at that time and even today is the primary cotton growing areas of India. But suddenly when these guys, the British East India Company, had established their rule over large parts of India, they realized that people back home in England were not interested in the Indian cotton clothes any longer.
But why?
Because in England they had started factories that were making clothing from artificial fiber. And then Lord Hastings, who was the big dude of the East India Company in those days in India, he came up with an idea. He said, if people don't want cotton from here, let us take something which they cannot get from anywhere in the world. And that is a product which is known as the shawl wool. What is it called?
Shawl wool.
And shawl wool comes from a sheep that is found only in Tibet. And the speciality of this particular sheep is, if you take it out of Tibet, it will not reproduce at all.
But why?
So that's how good that sheep is. It doesn't like being taken out of its own home. Which means that if you want the shawl wool, which is only available on a certain type of sheep, that is only available in Tibet, what will you have to do?
Go to Tibet, get it and come back.
You'll have to go to Tibet and get it and come back. And from India, or in this part of India where we are, which is the Garhwal Himalayas, if you have to go to Tibet, what will you have to cross?
Nepal.
You will have to cross Nepal, and that is the connection between Nepal and Mansuri. Did you follow?
Yes.
Not really.
Not really,
I'm
because
not understanding.
So then Lord Hastings and his other guys from the East India Company, they went to Amar Singh and they said, bro, can you please allow us to go through Nepal? We'll also trade with Nepal and trade with Tibet. Amar Singh said, nothing do. I don't want to have anything to do with you guys coming into my country.
But why?
Very good question, Avantika. For the simple reason that Amar Singh, and very justifiably so, was of the firm belief that if I allow these British traders to enter my country for trade, very soon their priests will come with the Bible to convert our people to Christianity. After that, their soldiers will come with the bayonets and with their guns, apparently to protect them, but very soon they will start capturing my territory, and the next thing I know, I will become one pappu under them. They're a pretty smart guy, because that's what the British East India Company and eventually England also did with us.
Really?
Yeah, that's how we got under British rule, right? For 200 years.
Yeah, I know that.
So Amar Singh said, nothing doing, I'm not going to let you go through here. In fact, forget going through Nepal, I also have under my control the Garhwal and the Kumaon, not really the Kumaon, but more the Garhwal part of what is today known as Uttarakhand in India, which is where we have the Welcome Heritage Kasmanda Palace today, and it didn't exist in those days, even though it's a very old hotel. He said, I will not even allow you to occupy all these places. Now the British were in really a very, very big quandary at that time, because in the north, the Nepal king was very strong, Raja Amar Singh, who was absolutely not willing to cooperate with them. And in the south, the Marathas were a very strong power. By that time, Shivaji Maharaj's descendants, the Peshwas, were ruling and they were in charge of the Maratha Empire, and they were really, really harassing the British. And the British had a huge threat that if Nepal attacks from the north and the Marathas attack from the south, we'll have to jump into the sea from Calcutta, because there'll be no other place to run.
But I have a little question.
Yes.
Did Shivaji Maharaj was still living in that time?
No, Shivaji Maharaj was not there at that time. This is in the early part of the 18th century. Shivaji Maharaj had passed away by that time, but his descendants were ruling, and the Maratha Empire, which Shivaji Maharaj had started, had become one of the most powerful empires in the world at that time. But coming back to the story, so Lord Hastings decided the first thing we have to do is cut Nepal out of the equation. Nepal ke saath war karo. Let's have a war against Nepal. Cut them down to size so that at least our northern borders are secure. And they started a war which happened at many places. One very crucial place was a place called Nalpani, which is just 6 kilometers from Dehradun. You remember we passed Dehradun on the way here?
Yes.
And we stopped at that lovely cafe where we had those pizzas and that stuffed
That
mushroom.
was so yummy.
Yeah,
That was so yummy, yeah. I mean, almost as good as the food that you get here at the Kasmanda Palace. But coming back, Nalpani was a fortress which was occupied by 600 Nepali soldiers. 600, and they were attacked by 5,000 British East India Company troops. You know what happened? For more than a month, they could not defeat the Nepalis.
What?
more-
5,000 versus 600.
5,000 versus 600, 5,000 with better guns, better trained soldiers, everything better. But the Gurkhas fight like lions. Each one of them is, the equal of 10 normal soldiers. And that's exactly what these Gurkhas did. They fought like lions. 70 Nepali soldiers was only what was left. And there were nearly 5,000 original European soldiers who had attacked. But what impressed the East India Company soldiers the most was the ethics with which the Nepalis fought. Ethics means if at the end of the day's fight there were bodies of the European soldiers or their army lying on the field, the Nepalis would not shoot on them. They would not ransack the bodies. They would just let them be there, allow the other soldiers to come, take the bodies and honorably bury them.
That's good.
They fought with a lot of honor and with a lot of bravery. And not just the men, the women and the children also laid their lives down. They said, no matter what happens, we are not going to let them go.
But women and children also fought.
Women and children
But
also.
children must be really young.
Yeah, but if somebody needed their bullets, the gunpowder to be filled into their guns, the children were helping with that, carrying water, carrying different things up to the wall which they were defending. All of that was being done by the children. The women, exceptionally brave. They would actually come right in front if they would feel that the men were getting shot, saying that we'd rather lay down our lives because you can fight back. That is the extent of their bravery. And the East India Company, the British soldiers, they didn't know what to do. So guess what they did?
What?
They cut off the water supply to the fort.
What? That's cheating.
It's no cheating, that's how wars are fought. They cut off the water supply to the fort, and within 3 days the Nepali soldiers were dying of starvation and of the fact that they had no water even to drink.
Oh my god.
So just 70 of them decided that fair enough, if we have to die, rather than sitting here and dying of hunger, let's open the gates and let's go and do a full frontal attack on them. So they opened the gates and did a full frontal attack on the British East India Company soldiers.
Did they win?
They didn't win because there were more than thousands of them and there were just 70 of these guys. And half of them were women and children. But they did a smart thing. They didn't just attack them directly. While they created the ruse that they're attacking them, they actually used it as a chance to escape into the neighboring jungles and go back and regroup. So that is the Battle of Nalpani. Unfortunately, Amar Singh, the Nepali king, he lost it, and the British took control of that entire territory. There was a British soldier whose name was Captain Young. Now, Captain Young was very fond of hunting, and he realized that a little ahead of Nalpani or a little ahead of Dehradun, there is this beautiful mountainous forested area where you find a lovely yellow flower which the locals call the Mansuri flower, because of which that area is called Mussoorie. So Young decided that Mansuri is such a lovely place for hunting that I will make a little hunting lodge over here. So he made a small hunting lodge in Mansuri, and that is, in those days hunting was allowed and hunting was cool and hunting was okay.
But I don't like when people hunt.
Hunting is definitely not a good thing, but it is probably way better than the environmentally disastrous and cruel fashion in which non-vegetarian food, especially red meat, is acquired today. But that's another discussion for another day. So Captain Young set up the first hunting lodge at a place that the locals called
Mansuri.
Mussoorie. And obviously, we all know how the British are very bad at the pronunciations, especially of Indian names. For example, what is the actual name for Trivandrum?
Thiruvananthapuram.
Absolutely. And Thiruvananthapuram became Trivandrum
Because they couldn't pronounce.
because they couldn't pronounce it. The same way Mansuri became Mussoorie. And that is what led to the birth of Mussoorie. And gradually, a lot of senior British officers started making their homes and their retreats in this beautiful place, Mussoorie, including what is today known as the Welcome Heritage Palace, Kasmanda Palace, where we are staying and really enjoying the hospitality. Like we've said in one of the other videos, this also was actually a retreat built by a British officer before the rulers of Kasmanda actually acquired it from him. So that is the story of how Mansuri became Mussoorie and the Nepali connection of this lovely queen of the hills that we today know as Mansuri.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell so that you don't miss any other content.
And share it with your friends.
Awesome. And do tune in for new videos that we'll keep posting either on something brilliant about our lovely country or of different ways in which we can protect the environment. So till we get back, goodbye and take care.